So let's talk for a minute about product and market differentiation in SaaS companies. Now, if you are in a brand new market and you're the very first company in your category, then you probably don't have to worry about a lot of product differentiation because there's no alternative to be compared against. And so by definition, being first makes you different. However, that only lasts so long. As categories and markets mature, what ends up happening is you have more competition, right? And at some point, the competition level gets so high, it's very hard for a prospect or a customer to figure out how are all of you different. And so differentiate becomes increasingly important as markets get larger and they get more competitive. So let's talk about 5 different ways you can differentiate your company as well as your product offerings. So number one, and my favorite way, particularly in B2B SaaS businesses, is to differentiate based on who you serve. So we hear a lot about the ideal customer profile or ICP. Now we're in SaaS, software as a service. We have a lot of acronyms. ICP, ideal customer profile, is probably one of the more important ones, actually. And what it refers to is picking your ideal customer. And most people, honestly, they get this wrong. We want anyone who wants to drive more sales, right? Something very, very, very broad. And when I do work with clients, it's really about narrowing down your ideal customer profile to those customers that are really well suited for what you have to offer. They're really easy to sell to. You can charge them higher prices and premium prices, and they're happy to pay it. They stay longer, have a higher lifetime value, and they're really thrilled with your product offering. And that's not true for all customers you might sell to. So number one in the playbook for differentiation is narrow down your focus in terms of who you sell to and make sure it's very obvious in your website and your marketing copy and your sales conversations, as well as in your product footprint and your product future roadmap. That is a major point of differentiation. So another way to differentiate your offerings is to focus on a different definition of the problem. Software and products and services, for that matter, are designed to solve a problem. So if you can solve a different problem or a different definition of the problem, that automatically differentiates you from other offerings. So let's give an example. So the sales automation category is quite large, right? Companies that are in the space want to sell to companies that want to increase sales, right? Which is pretty much most companies. Nobody wants to shrink sales generally. So you might be competing against, say, a sales CRM system like a Salesforce or HubSpot. And then the problem they solve is to increase sales by having Salesforce automation, right? And so that's like, okay, that makes sense when you kind of probably need something like that. So another definition might be that you have an artificial intelligence bot that helps you target more profitable customers. And so your message there might be, hey, our job is not to get you more sales by automating the sales force. Our offering helps you get more customers that retain longer. So if you just want more customers, you can use everybody else. But if you want to get more customers that stay longer, then that's the problem we solve. So just there in that sort of hypothetical example, I've differentiated my offering from everybody else. So if you have problem X, you shouldn't buy from us. But if you have problem Y, that's what we focus on. So another way to differentiate your product offerings is to solve your customers' problems using a different mechanism than the existing providers in that category. So let's say you're in a very crowded market for Salesforce automation and tools that improve sales performance for companies that have Salesforces, right? There's a lot of companies in that kind of a space. Now, let's say your mechanism, how you improve sales, might be very, very different and very specific. So for example, if you offer auto dialer technology, where you can use an app that will automatically dial the phone number of the prospects that you're trying to call, and it just saves you time from having to dial the phone numbers, on your phone, for example, right? That's a very specific mechanism that's different. And if you can demonstrate that the auto dialer will save you about 10% of time, and it allows you to make 15 more cold calls per day per sales rep, across 100 different reps, you can quickly figure out, wow, that's worth a lot of money. And so that mechanism is a point of differentiation. And the reason you want that point of differentiation is because it allows a customer to know why they're buying and potentially to buy multiple products in the category. So you don't want to do is have someone buy something else instead of yours, but if you solve a problem in a different kind of way that's useful for them, they can also buy yours as well. The fourth way to differentiate your company and your offering is to make a different promise to customers than the rest of the competition. So I had a company once where they were in the project management automation software, right? That's like a pretty broad category. And everyone in that market was saying, we can manage more projects more easily. We have maybe alerts and notifications. We can track workflow, sort of all the very common sort of project management type software pieces. And what this company decided to do was they realized the main reason customers were buying was to save time. And they figured out that what they really want to do is save time so they can end the workday earlier, particularly on Fridays. So their message was not buy our software, not buy these features. It was none of that. The promise was, we're going to get you out of the office by 3 p.m. on Friday instead of 6 p.m. And how we do that is through automating project management workflows, right? And so that promise was very different. And so it really appealed to people that wanted that outcome. And you have to keep in mind that none of us are in the software business. We are only in the outcome business that happens to involve software. So when you can make a different promise and back it up and prove it and really deliver on that promise, you can really stand out and be quite different. The fifth and final way to really differentiate your offerings is to change the risk equation for customers by eliminating or reducing or even reversing the risk associated with buying your product. So typically what happens is a customer like myself, I look at your product offering, I buy it, and there's a risk that what you say you can do for me doesn't actually happen, right? Maybe the software doesn't work. Maybe it works differently than I thought. Maybe you overpromised and underdelivered. So I, as the customer, am taking on a lot of risk. So you can sort of reduce that risk. You can say, hey, try it out for 14 days, try it out for 90 days, try it out for 1 year if you're being really extreme. And if you're not satisfied, we'll refund your money. That kind of reduces the risk a little bit. And so you'll see a lot of this in terms of free trials and short-term trials, 7 days, 14 days. You see a lot of that sort of last couple of years. You didn't see that so much maybe 20 years ago. Now you can reverse the risk, which is, hey, use our software. We guarantee your sales will go up 15% within 90 days, or we'll refund your money and pay you $10,000. That's different, right? That's different. Now we're not selling software. Now we're selling revenue growth, right? Now it takes a lot of work from a software vendor standpoint and probably having the right services around to really deliver and guarantee an outcome. But ultimately, companies and customers want to buy outcomes. If they could get the sales growth they wanted by not buying their software, like they would, I would in a heartbeat. So when you can guarantee an outcome and you take away all that risk, and in fact, you put the risk so you're, as a vendor, are bearing more risk than the customer is, that's really different. It's very compelling. And it forces customers to take a hard look where, wow, why wouldn't I do that? That's like a no-brainer decision, right? And you want to get as close to that as possible. So in closing, very important to differentiate your offerings, particularly as markets get mature. And I've mentioned 5 different ways you can do it and be effective. Pick one that works for you and go do it.